Hi guys, what are we gonna do today? Today I'm gonna show you one of our new products we're getting, our new Royce stencils. We have an urn and we have a cloche that I'm using. I'm gonna show you how we came up with these using Royce papers, stencils, and transfers and some paint. Let's get started. So I'm gonna use this little heavier weight paper, and I'm going to paint 2 sheets of this to put my stencil onto. So first, all I'm gonna do is use a light cream colored paint and just get my paper prepared. So what I'm gonna be doing is stenciling the urn on one of these, and on the other sheet, I am going to stencil the cloche onto that. So I wanted a little bit more grab to it, so in a little more texture. So I'm just painting both sheets of paper first, and we're gonna let them dry. Now, I'm also gonna paint my big box. I am using this very large kind of open box. This came from an old trunk and they would set these inside. I had several of them, so I thought this is what I am gonna use. But you could use anything you would like. Any cardboard, you could make one out of wood. I just wanted something really large and I wanted it to go in. So I felt like I had a little depth to it. I'm painting this because if I just laid my decoupage paper on here, I would see all of this blue coming through it. So I just want to give it a nice white coat. And I'm just going to paint the inside sides. You could leave, if you have a really interesting design in there, you could leave it. Okay, so I'm going to let all these pieces dry, and then we're going to move on. So my paint is dry on my paper. Now this is one of the stencils I'll be using. This is the urn, and I used a low tack repositionable spray on the back. And I found, you could be real careful, but I found that really helped, especially when you have so many tiny elements. So I am just going to press this down and make sure it's sealed really well everywhere, because I'm going to be using a chalk paste. If you were just doing just a stencil, you could just carefully pounce up and down. But I need to move it a little bit more, so I really wanted to make sure this is secure on here. And I'm just going to use a black. Okay. I'm going to make sure this is down nice and tight and carefully without letting it bleed through. I'm just using a Iron Gate. It's a chalk paste, but I am mixing in this Rust Effects paste. And I'm just mixing them together to give me a little bit different texture. It's coming out kind of cool. We'll see how well this works. So on these little teeny parts, I'm just going down carefully, and I am not overworking this because I do not want it to bleed through. I'm going with the grain. So whichever way these elements are going, I'm going to continue doing this. And after we finish this one, we're going to do our cloche. So when I finish this, I'm just going to let it fully dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to work on my cloche and do the same thing. The only thing I would suggest is as soon as you're done, definitely go wash your stencil. Okay, so I'm going to carefully lift this off and see if I ended up. It's on paper, so you still need to be a little mindful of that. Oh, it did a little bit of a bleed through, but I'm really loving the texture on this. So this is my cloche stencil. Now I don't know if you can see, there's this butterfly here with the skull in here. There's a crown here. I am just going to be using the outside of the cloche. I'm not even going to use the bottom because I'm putting it inside the urn. So I'm taping off a few of the areas. The first thing I want to do is I really feel like I need to get my transfers on here first. So what I'm going to do is lightly draw with a pencil these outside edges so I know where I want to put. Flowers are going to here. And then I just drew this bottom line, but I'm really going to go straight across. It won't matter if anything hangs off, it'll be underneath. So you can see I have this area to work in. So the first thing I'm gonna do is put a sealer over the top of this so my transfer sticks really well. So I am going to put my transfers down. I'm just gonna eyeball some of this. So I'm just gonna be filling this in and taking my pieces. I kind of have an idea of where I'm going to. When I lay my stencil on top, I can line up this top and I'll know, and I'm just going to cut it after I'm done. So you don't need to worry if this goes over. I just don't wanna waste a lot because we're gonna be cutting excess off. Okay, so I think I will start with this at the bottom, and now I'm just gonna keep layering and adding more to it. So I think I've got as much. If I wanna add more, I can later. I debated, but I decided I'm gonna put a quick sealer over this, and not even, I was gonna do it at the very end anyway, but because I have the low tack adhesive on the back of the stencil, I don't want it accidentally lifting any of the transfer. So I'm gonna go put that on there, let that dry, and then we're gonna start our stenciling. So this is tacky. I think I'm gonna get it a little, just a little less tacky because I sprayed the spray on it, but I just don't want it to lift anything. Even though I've sealed it, now I'm gonna line this up and lay this here. And all I am really gonna be doing is these edges here and this and these edges here. So I'm gonna use the same mixture I used earlier, just like a grayish black chalk paste, and also this Rust Effects, the gray. So I'm just using my little cardigan, and you can use something that is made to put chalk paste on. Any of those things will work. This is an old card that I had that works really well. Once again, hold it down. I don't want it to bleed through. So I'm really just chalk pasting around the sides and at the top. I'm not doing any of the crown or the butterfly or the bottom because I know the bottom is going to be tucked under the urn. Carefully get this off. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and then we are going to cut out around both of these pieces. So this is dry. So I'm going to cut this out very carefully, and you can decide how you want to cut it. If you're using the stencil, there's some weird ridges. I'm going to go in and around, and I'm going to give myself just a little bit of an edge. After I'm done cutting this one out, I am going to cut out the Cloche. And what I am looking at is my black lines, not my transfer. So you can see I will be cutting through a tad bit of this transfer. So I'm just going to cut this all out. So you really want to make sure this is dry so you don't smear any of this. So this is what I've cut, and I know this is going under here. So I think I'm just going to cut straight across right here, right now. So you can see on the bottom of the stencil there is all of this. So it really is a standalone. I just wanted to put it on top of the urn, so I took that out and I didn't stencil that. I am going to go get my box. So I grabbed one of these decoupage papers, and I am going to decoupage the inside. I decided what I would do is I'm going to do my sides first, and the top and the bottom, and then I am going to lay this in the inside. So this is Royce neutral ticking, which I think is just perfect for this project we're doing. So I am going to be decoupaging this on here, and the paint, this is dry. So I am just going to decoupage this whole thing. I said I'm going to start with the sides, and what I'm going to do is bring it to this top edge as well as I can here, and then bring it down. I don't mind that there's a little overlap at the bottom. So I measured my paper out, so I'm giving myself just a teeny bit longer, just a tad bit wider, just so if anything moves or shifts, I am really good. Anything excess, I can sand off when we're done. By the time we're all done, you're never going to see those few little imperfections. Now with these bottom pieces, I made sure they're running the same way, so it looks like it all goes together. So the stripes are running this way there and this way here, and they'll run this way here. And the decoupage medium I'm using is one that we had just made. We have a video on how we made this one. But use what you really like, or maybe what you already have. Once again, I'm going to line up the top edge. You know, a lot of times I like to put the medium on my surface and lay my paper down. But I had learned this trick from Royce. When I put the decoupage medium on my paper, it helps it to stretch already, so it won't bubble as much because the paper is stretched. When you put the decoupage medium on your surface, and when you lay your paper down, then it wants to stretch your paper. So this way, it works well. Sometimes people will just put decoupage medium on their surface and then a light mist of water on the paper and then lay it down, and you're getting the same effect, which is nice because it's already stretching on its own. See, I can line these up here. So this is one of the times I think I am going to lightly mist, and then I am going to use my medium on my actual surface. So I'm kind of working from the center and then working down and out. I said a few of the wrinkles, if I'm really concerned about, I will put parchment paper over the top and iron it, but I don't think it is going to make a difference on this project when we're done at all. So now I'm just going to let this dry. So these are my two pieces, and I just kind of cut the bottom there. I'm just going to put it like just a finger ways away from the bottom. And then I'm going to decoupage both of these pieces in here. So since this paper is just a tad bit heavier, I just want to make sure I decoupage this down very well. Start with this. And since this is heavier, you're going to have to like hold it down a sec. And that's why you really need to make sure that your texture paste is really, really dry. You don't want to squish that. Very carefully over this transfer. Okay, now I'm going to do my bottom piece, my urn. And I'm probably being a little more generous with this because this is heavier paper. And same thing, I don't want to rub over this texture medium. So I am just pressing down with my fingers carefully because I don't want to rub it and rub it off or scrape any of it. Okay, we are going to let this dry. So what I'm going to do is put a quick coat of a sealer over the top of this. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking some off-white paint and I'm diluting it. This is actually the cream paint I started with. And you can use whatever type of paint you would like. And I'm diluting it down quite a bit, then wiping a bunch off. I have a sealer on here, so if I feel like I have too much of this white, I can probably get most of that off. I just want a bit of this white paint dry brushed around my Cloche and my urn in the background. And I'm even going to put a little bit on the sides. So very, very carefully. You can wait to do this later. Where are all my ridges? I am lightly, with almost no paint or water on this brush, I'm just lightly going over the texture of the chalk paste. And I am going to do that around here very carefully. It just gives you a little bit of interest. It doesn't look so stark black. Okay, so one more time. Going to seal over the top of this, let it dry, and we're going to get our transfers on. So I had sealed it after I did the dry brush on here, and it is completely dry. I have decided I'm going to put this bird here, but I do want something behind him. And all I'm going to be doing is putting some transfers of leaves at this top section. And you could use anything, nothing, stamp a word, I mean anything that you would like. I just wanted to do something fun like leaves coming down from the top. So I am using my IOD transfers, and I'm using some Whispering Willows, some other scraps I have in the Floral Anthology. I really like that one. Be careful because I'm going over this chalk paste on top of here. And I don't want to dent up my chalk paste, and I also want the transfer to stick. So I'm just being very careful. So I'm glad I sealed this again because it's really helping a lot with the transfer application to this. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to start layering some fun leaves throughout here. So now I decided I'm just going to add some typography. I really felt like it really needed some fun words. I'm adding a few right there. I'm just going to add them in a few little spaces to give me just a tad bit more interest. So I'm just going to start transferring these on here. So I put in several transfers and laid them out. If I still want something when I'm done, I can add that. And you can see I add some typography in here a bit too. But what I'm going to do next is I am going to use my IOD vintage texture stamp, and I'm just going to do some stamping throughout this. I'm using black ink, but you could use gray ink, brown ink, not even do this at all. So this is so large, I'm just going to start in different areas. I'm also going to put some on the insides. And then what I'm going to do next is to put my vintage photo distress oxide, and I'm going to put this over the top of this, rub this over everywhere. I'm going to do one last seal on it, and that'll help spread it around. And I don't want to rub it too hard over these areas because I don't want to break any of my texture off. But then you can see where there are any wrinkles or anything else here, it kind of fills in too. A little more color in here. Now I'm going to do one last seal. So I am using my Minwax polyacrylic crystal clear sealer. The antiquing is getting moved. It moves it around a bit. And if I really had too much antiquing somewhere, I would put some more sealer on my brush, rub it, and I can move it and it lightens it up. And then I also did the edges, so I'm going to seal these edges, and see how that just moves that around. Now we're gonna go let this dry and we are done. Hope you guys thought that this was fun. You can see they're the same, but they're different. I really wanted to show you how the cloche would actually fit on top of the urn. Of course, you could use them separately, do them any way you would like. And you can see some of the differences. On this one on the leaves, I outlined with black marker, and you can see it makes it pop a little bit more, but I love the subtleness of this also. So we had used chalk paste on this one to make it more 3D, and this one we had just painted. We do have the IOD transfers, the Royce cycle papers and stencils on our shop page. Hope you guys give this a try, but whatever you do, have fun.